Hello there, and welcome to 3Spoonies. We're your hosts, Karen, Jo, and Claire. This is episode number 62.5, and we're discussing representation on TV. Let's get into some questions.
Are you drowning in admin? Struggling to keep up with emails, invoices, social media, or the endless to-do list that comes with running a business? Then it's time to call in Vicky Admin Fairy, an award-winning virtual assistant who brings order to admin chaos. Vicky works with all entrepreneurs, regardless of their background or abilities, to take care of the time-consuming tasks that slow you down. Whether it's managing emails, sorting financial admin, handling social media, chasing late payments, the list is endless. She saves business owners hours every week, reducing stress and ensuring everything runs smoothly. With 25 years of experience, a flexible, client-focused approach, and a reputation for going above and beyond, Vicky adapts to your needs, making your business more efficient so you can focus on what you do best. And the best part? You'll have more free time to grow your business, boost profits, or just enjoy life without admin headaches. Want to free up your time and get your business running more smoothly? Visit www.vickyadminfairy.co.uk or email hello@vickyadminfairy.co.uk to find out how Vicky can help you.
Hello, I'm Karen from Pony Pony Pony.
And I'm Jo from Bright Cat Business Solution.
And I'm Claire from Black Belt Stationery.
And together we're 3Spoonies giggling at a cat invasion.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Don't apologise. I mean, has anyone ever been in a meeting that's been made worse by a pet appearing? We may have to negotiate with Lola. We're back with Samantha Renke, who, if you were here last time or if you've seen her round and about, which you probably have, you'll know she's pretty darn amazing. So we've got some questions coming up, which are from local students from Confetti and Nottingham College, who were asking questions about getting into TV and stuff like that. I'm going to pass over to Claire. Whoosh!
So, our first question is from Kimmy, and their question is, what's the best way to get into TV for young people? Is it best to work your way up or to become recognised?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And just for a little bit of context, I don't come from an acting school background. So I think, for a lot of young actors, that's definitely the way forward, is to if you have the luxury, the opportunity to go, come from a kind of a drama theatre school, then absolutely. But that doesn't mean that that's exclusive. If you are in high school and you have a drama as a GCSE option, absolutely get involved with all the things that you can get involved with, whether that's at your local church, whether that's your community, groups and clubs. But I think what a lot of young people have that I didn't necessarily have is the power of social media, the power of TikTok, the power of Instagram. It's just the best way to get comfortable with how you look on camera and how you come across on camera. I know it can be quite daunting for a lot of people, and I feel like I'm a bit of a dinosaur now, so I absolutely hate doing things on social media. I feel quite grateful that I just kind of work my way up. And I think how I work my way up is saying yes to lots of different opportunities that meant me being, either on radio or on television. A lot of that came from, my association with all different charities, Action for Children, Scope, so again, just being really part of your community and understanding actually what your passions are. So if you're not coming from a traditional drama school background, which essentially, trains you to be polished and trains you in, dance and so forth. If you're someone a bit like me, who's like, really, really love acting, don't know whether I want it to be my be-all and end-all career, but I also kind of want to give that a bit of a push. I think, look at things that you can do that will give you those opportunities, in your community. Like, who knows, you might have to, like, say with me, with my charity work, they were like, Sam, we need someone to talk about this. Would you mind going on, a radio, like even if it's just a local radio show. And, slowly, you kind of build up that confidence and you get to know the ins and outs of the industry. And creativity can look and feel very different. So even if you're using social media, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to go ahead and do like a whole scripted theatrical piece. Think about the things that you're passionate with. It's about getting comfortable in front of the camera, being able to speak. So even if you start off by doing things that are a bit more journalistic, like you might like cats, and there's been a whole story in your local paper about a cat that did something extraordinary. Kind of pretend you're a reporter and go on these platforms and give your opinion. Call it, or even go on, I think it's Vox Pops, like interview people in the street, because once you can do that, you can pretty much do anything. I still do a lot for news outlets, and they throw you into some weird and wonderful environments. I remember being, in central London, and I had to do like a piece to camera. So that is, essentially there's quite a lengthy introduction or outro, and you have to kind of deliver that without a script. You're not allowed to look down. And it was just when everyone was coming out of work, and I was literally in the city, and I was stood there with a film crew, and like everyone's walking past you, and I kept messing up because there was like one bit I just couldn't get in my head, and I was like, like everyone was staring, and part of me was like, oh, everyone thinks I'm important, and then the other part of me was like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's too scary. So yeah, push yourself out of your comfort zones as well, because all I will say is in these environments, you really do get put in at the deep end, and people just expect you to perform. Do you know what I mean? Like they just expect you to kind of sink or swim, and you just have to go with it to a certain degree. Like, I think that's a positive about the kind of work that the industry is, that it's very fast paced and it keeps you on your toes. But I do think from a disability standpoint, personally, that's where sometimes it can go a little bit awry because people forget about your own individual needs. So there's swings and roundabouts, absolutely.
Thank you for that. That was, I mean, yeah, there's lots to take away from that. I can't digest it all at the moment. My brain's like, lots of things. But no, that was really good. Thank you. So our next is from Nicole, who says she's more interested in being behind a camera than in front of it. Would employees make allowances for her if she's not a star?
If she's not a star, sorry.
Yeah. I suppose behind the camera is, I don't know. Aaron, you got the questions from
Yeah.
them, so you
Sorry,
might be able
I've
to give some context.
summarised what she said. It was she wants more to work in editing, but her thing was like, I included the word allowance because that's what she asked for, but it's not making allowance, it's reasonable accommodations. But she said, would they do that for people sort of behind the scenes and on crew, or would they only do it if you're big and famous and recognised?
So
I
making
mean,
allowances in like a disabled context.
yeah. I mean, I've not worked that. I do have a production company, and probably my friend Max would be a great one to ask about that. He should come on your show as well, actually. I think under the Equality Act and the Reasonable Adjustments Act, they have no choice but to. I couldn't tell specifically for editing. What they might do is buddy you up with someone potentially, so that because there can be quite a quick turnaround. But I think what the beauty of things like editing is, you're often in, a room, a very small room, editing on your own, and people just kind of leave you to your own devices. So I think it's completely up to you in terms of what would be manageable for you. All I can say is, don't hold back when it comes to what your reasonable adjustments or your needs are. Don't wait to the last minute. I know it can be scary because you think if you're too honest up front, then you might get discriminated against. But for me personally, I think it's even worse if you get that role and then all of a sudden you're like drowning because you've kind of maybe just not disclosed your ability to, or you might be managing fatigue or your concentration, or so be very upfront. I think I'm getting better at setting my own boundaries. Boundaries are so difficult when you're disabled, particularly.
Yes. Yeah.
Because sometimes when I've set boundaries, what people have done have actually taken work away from me. And that's not what I wanted. I don't want the work taken away. I just want us to work in a way that I can manage it easily, and still perform at the best of my ability. So I think in answer to your question, I couldn't give you specifics on what behind the scenes accommodations look like. There's a lovely lad who I used to do a podcast with called Dan Edge, EDGE, and he works essentially as a film coordinator for disability. So he goes on set and he basically tells everyone how reasonable adjustments should look. So he might be someone to check out on social media.
Mhm.
Could be interesting. And I like that. It's kind of on a tangent. My son is an extra in a film at the end of the month, but because they haven't got anyone to because he needs constant supervision in a way. So they're like, you can come and be an extra on it as well, just so that I can keep an eye on him and stuff like that. And it's really interesting being in the WhatsApp group for it, the amount of people as extras that have disabilities. And it's kind of like they've taken all these people on and they're asking the questions of like, is this like, oh, is it okay for me with this? There's someone that's partially blind. There is a couple of wheelchair users, things like that. And it's interesting to see their responses coming back. And they've actually done the research on the places where they're filming to make sure it is fully accessible.
Yeah.
I was really
Yeah.
at the feedback was, I haven't got to go and check it out. Yep, we've done this. This is this. So it's nice to see it from the other side where it can be well done.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I had it's the same but not the same. So I might be going to the big vegan camp out in Nottinghamshire this summer. So I'm vegetarian for 7 years and recently turned vegan, vegan for the animals. And I really want to get to know that community and I really want to be part of that and kind of, embrace people that have very similar ideologies and ethos as me. And I went in all guns blazing when I messaged the access because obviously it's a campsite, like it's not the
Yeah.
most success. And I went in very like snarky. And like gave them a little bit like, have you thought about, Mobiloos and things like that? And this lady, I mean, hats off to her. She is neurodivergent herself, didn't know this to begin with, but she gave me the most complex, detailed, like response ever. And I was like, ate my words. You know what I mean?
It's a nice
So I think
surprise though, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you're
it
just like,
is.
yes, they've thought of us.
Yeah. And
So what I heard is me and Karen need to go find a campsite and stalk Samantha.
yeah.
Yeah, we're both in Nottingham, and I think I might know where the campsite is based on what you've
Okay.
just said.
Nice.
We may
It's
have
in
some
August.
stalking happening
It's
this
in
summer.
August. I've not made up my mind yet because I'm still a bit of a princess and I don't know how I would fare with camping. I might have to book into a hotel nearby and then just go for the day.
I don't do camping, and I'm actually going camping in June, and I'm like, I'm going to Download Festival for the first time ever. I'm camping. Yeah. And I'm just like, part of me is like, I'm really excited. I cannot wait for this. The other part of me is like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
It's all right, because then we're going to do an episode about all of our experiences camping.
Yeah, it's research for the podcast. That's what I've got to remember. Okay, before I digress anymore, our last question is from Felix. And he says he's interested in script writing. Can he write characters who have conditions that he doesn't have?
Absolutely. I think always engage with people. Again, use social media, like literally put on your story, hey, I'm writing a character about someone with cerebral palsy or brittle bones, like holler at me if that's you. I think I know what he's trying to get at, like, is there a danger that you can
Yeah.
take over someone's identity? But I think when you're disabled, we have so many overlapping lived experience. Go with that. Go with that first. And then for anything that's technical, definitely reach out to people that can help you firsthand with that. But I think, I always say, like, disabled people are people at the end of the day. We want love, respect, friendship, loyalty, success. So lead with that's your character core, and then the fact that they are disabled is just a part of them. But we can flesh that out later on. I think we all know about cripping up and the dangers of that. And I think that's where that doesn't sit nice with me. And the reason why it doesn't sit right with me is because, as I discussed in the previous podcast, disabled people are still not on a level playing field. So until we're at a level playing field, I don't want someone who's not disabled to take my roles or to write things on my behalf without at least having a huge amount of input from
Yeah, if they're
my
doing the research and
community.
speaking to somebody that has that condition or the
Absolutely.
disability, then it's
Absolutely.
okay because you're representing them and you're doing it the
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah. But it's that back and forth and that back and forth. I think you get the danger. Like, I've done interviews before, and I've done an interview like over Zoom or something, and by gosh, like I read the article afterwards and I'm like, wow, like what? No, no, no. That language is wrong. Nope, no. Did I use any? Nope. So I think it just needs to be done really carefully and considerate. But again, as long as your core messages are representative of, just being a human being, I don't think you can go too wrong.
Okay, so that is all of our questions. I'm going to pass us back to Karen.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for those answers. I'm sure they'll go down really well with, as I said, those
Aw,
students. They're absolute superstars. They're so talented.
good.
And yeah, I just wish them all the best because they're fabulous. Is there anything you'd like to plug, tell us about, show off about?
I mean, come and follow me on like Instagram. It's literally my name, Samantha Renke, Renke. Come and slide into my DMs if you want. But yeah, I mean, just if there's any quite more questions, then pop them in there, and I'll always do my best to try and get back to people. Might take me a while, but I'll definitely try and get back to people.
We get that. It's a suitable timescale.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
thank you for being here again. Thank you to our
Thank you.
students and thank you to our listeners, viewers, and combinations of the two. Thank you for joining us for 3Spoonies on
Aw,
representation on TV. We'd love to know
thank
your
you.
thoughts in the comments, any questions you have, and they will be responded to in a suitable timescale. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe for our weekly podcast and leave us a review, especially if it's nice. You can also buy us a coffee if you like what we do, because I'm nearly out. Links, as ever, will be in the show notes to all the fabulous things that have been mentioned. And we'll see you next week for our next topic, preparing for the peaks, which, to be clear, is not preparing for the 3 Peaks Challenge. I don't think we're up to that at the moment. Just wanted to save any confusion. Have a great day and keep track of your spoons.